Welcome to the Fantasy Aceball podcast. This is your host, Tim Kanak. You can find me on wherever, the X, to the Twitter at Fantasy Aceball. You can also find me on YouTube at the Tim Kanak, Kanak. That's how you spell my last name. So it's a palindrome. Same forward as backwards. Kanak. Makes it nice and easy for you to look for on the internets if you want to watch this live. Because if you are only listening and you are not watching, first off, you can see that this podcast is presented to you by Perkins Roofing, one of my construction companies, because I'm wearing all the gear today. So if you need roofing or construction in Florida, you know who to reach out to. Hit me up at Perkins Roofing. You can search all that stuff on YouTube and Google or whatever too if you want to find my company, and we'll hook you up. That's one of my construction companies, Perkins Roofing, Perkins Construction. We do everything. Anyway, if you're not in Florida, you're like, stop talking about that. So here we go. You can also find my written stuff on Fantasy Pros, and on Fantasy Pros, you will be seeing released the relief pitcher rankings soon. Starting pitcher rankings are all out there, about 280 starting pitchers. I don't know if you're going to find a deeper ranking than that. Even my boys at Pitcher List are only usually ranking 100 names, and then they throw in their extras and stuff like that. But I've got 280 pitchers. So check that out on the Fantasy Pros if you want to look at all the rankings. All the player fScores are now updated on Fantasy Pros. So if you want to see any fScores, I finished last night. All the fScores are now complete. About 400 hours of work because I'm instead of teaching myself to code, which might take less than 400 hours, I've decided to manually enter all of this data into spreadsheets so that my algorithm can play out, which takes forever. And then I have to plug it into the fScore spreadsheets. So it's a ton of just data entry work. And usually I kind of zone out and listen to podcasts and stuff like that when I'm doing it. So it's not the worst thing to do, but it is very time consuming. And my wife probably wants to punch me in the face because I spend so much time on staring at a computer instead of at her and my lovely babies. So if you can, because it is free, please, at the very least, this is what you can do for me. You can subscribe to my X at Fantasy Aceball. You can subscribe to my YouTube at the Tim Kanak, and you can give me little 5-star reviews because it is a ton of work. I'm providing a lot of this content for free when other people charge for this kind of stuff, including my prospect rankings, which are next on my to-do list to re-up my prospect rankings preseason. So that's my next thing that's on the to-do list. Again, I give all this stuff for free. There's no Patreon. You don't have to pay for my stuff. I do well in my real construction companies here, so I don't need to make money on the fantasy stuff. So if you like what I'm doing, go review Perkins Roofing. Even give me a 5-star. Just show your appreciation because karma will come back to you. It takes 5 seconds to give a review. So give me reviews on my baseball stuff. Just give me a 5-star review with no comments if you haven't used my roofing services on Perkins Roofing or Perkins Construction's Googles. Because I am providing a lot of free content out to the universe to help you win your fantasy leagues. And I'm not asking for anything back in return, except for a stupid little 5-star review, which takes like 10 seconds to do. So please, if you can do that for me. If you're watching, you can already see that I have no guest today. Jake was supposed to come on the podcast today, but he has to do some wedding prep stuff. He's getting married in the near future, and he has to do a cake testing, and then he was supposed to come on the podcast after the cake testing. However, I guess wifey had a surprise event planned for him after, so now he's stuck into that. So here I am solo at the last second. And I say the last second because I did not want to reschedule this because I am leaving out of the country tomorrow, and I'm not going to be back for a week. And I wanted to get this podcast out to you, my fair listeners, before I left the country. So this is coming to you solo for that reason. And you're going to have to bear with my voice throughout the whole thing. Also, by the way, it's not out yet, but I'm going to be on a podcast soon. So look out for that. We did a first-year player draft live. They haven't announced it yet, so I don't know if I want to really give it away on my podcast, but you'll see it. It'll be online. We did a 4-person first-year player draft live with a bunch of prospect analysts, and it was very fun. So check that out when it comes out. I don't want to give away the secrets. If you follow along with the replies and stuff like that on my Twitter feed, you might be able to figure it out. But check that out. It's a fun one. So anyway, without further ado, what we're going to do in this podcast is we're going to complete the starting pitcher fScores, which we started with Jake last time around. And then after that, I'm going to get to the relievers, which I only ranked like 150 or something like that. Only 150. So I did not go ham on the relievers like I did with the starters. I basically covered every starter that I think has an opportunity to start in 2025. With the relievers, I just went with people that are more or less fantasy relevant. There are some weird leagues out there where maybe you have like 8-man bullpens, or if you're in a 30-team league, you need relievers. That there's going to be guys that won't be covered in the relief pitcher rankings. But if you're in a 15-team or even a 16-team Otnu like I am, where you need 5 relievers, you're going to be covered for your 16-team Otnu leagues by just looking at my reliever rankings. So again, without further ado, as I keep stalling, let us go ahead and open up the starting pitcher rankings so we can complete that. All righty. Shared screen. You see starting pitcher rankings. Let me make this a little more user-friendly. Maybe this is more user-friendly as we go through the starters here. So looking at the starting pitcher rankings, we left off on pitcher 115. So this next tier here is going to cover 115 through 134, and there are a good amount of rookies in here. You'll see at the top of the list is Chase Delander. I think that he performed so well last year that the Rockies would be very, very silly if they did not put him on like a Paul Skeens-like track this year. He is the same class as Paul Skeens, and he's already basically a year behind. But if I'm the Rockies, Delander was so good, and that team is just like unbearable to watch, right? Like let's bring Chase Delander up in May after you get that extra year of eligibility, because you know he's a pitcher and you're the Rockies. You have to get that check mark, right? You got to get that extra year. You also don't want him to win Rookie of the Year, so maybe you wait until June to bring him up, because you don't want him to pull a Paul Skeens and win Rookie of the Year, because then you're going to lose that year of eligibility. And you know that Chase Delander is not going to want to re-sign with you unless you pay him a ton of money, because it sucks to pitch in Coors and nobody wants to pitch there forever. So you want to milk as many of those player years out as you can. So I would expect Delander to make his debut maybe at the end of May, middle to end of May, if they're going to be really aggressive about it. But he should be up by June or July because he's that good. And even in Colorado, yes, he's going to be that good. So I'm big on Chase Delander. You can see the next name here is Caden Dana. He had a really rough start to the major league career. I would kind of ignore some of that. The dude was only 20 last year. He's going to be turning 21. The Angels did Angels things, and they promoted him from AA straight to the majors. They didn't send him to AAA, which I know is a terrible environment for pitchers. And AAA for the Angels. That's why Joe Adell was blasting off like every third at bat when he was in AAA down there, because that is a very bad pitching environment. So I understand why they would skip AAA for him. But the dude was still 20. He has work to do. He has very, very good run prevention skills, and he had really good strikeout rates and swinging strike rates and CSWs in the lower minors when he was in A-ball and high A. He pitched most of the season last year at AA as a 20-year-old. And his swinging strike rate was hovering around the 12s, which translate roughly to like a 10 in the majors, which is like right? That's like number 4 starter, or probably like 3-4 starter is what you're looking at. Now, I think, and I've talked about this on Prospect One, I think there's more in here because he showed the swinging strike stuff in the lower minors. I don't think that's completely gone. I just think that it's going to take some time to develop. He might be one of these pitchers that comes up and struggles for a little bit, but becomes a pretty good pitcher down the road. So I would just keep that in mind long-term with Dana in like dynasty or keeper leagues, that I think he's going to pan out to be a better pitcher, but he might only be like a number 4 starter at first for you. Like, no, not for you in a fantasy league, but like a number 4 starter in real life, which makes him in a fantasy league like your last guy on your roster, your last starter on your roster. So you might have to bear with that for a few years before he develops into more of a strikeout guy, but I think that the stuff is there and he can develop that. And you see it in the fScores at 98 F stuff. But he has good control for a rookie. 103 is very good control for a rookie. Look at DeLander's 93. And then a 125 FERA. So I think he has good stuff for run prevention, and he really showed that in the minors. And I think we're going to see that play out. I'm not going to go over every name here, but Andre Palante, the next guy on this list, is very, very interesting. You can see he kind of sucks. Like his stuff sucks. His control sucks. But for whatever reason, he's really good at not giving up runs. And if you want to know why, all you have to do is look at his ground ball rates. This guy has insane ground ball rates. All he does is generate ground balls. If you have a good defense behind him, he's not going to give up runs because he's just a ground ball pitcher. He's got the death ball. That death ball comes down, people get on top of it, and it's a ground ball. That's what happens. He developed this death ball, and that's what made him good last year versus previous years when he was the reliever, because he was throwing like 95. His stuff just doesn't play well, and his death ball is his best pitch. That's what's generating all the ground ball contact. So, like, if you're in a Ottoneu league where home runs kill you, this is actually a pretty good pitcher because I think he's going to pitch a lot of innings and he's not going to give up homers. So he's going to get you a lot of points in that kind of style of league. But like, if I'm going to compare him to someone, like, he really kind of reminds me of like Dakota Hudson, maybe like Dakota Hudson's like good years, or maybe like a little bit of Kyle Hendricks and Dakota Hudson or something. So like, he's not going to get strikeouts. So he sucks if you want strikeouts. But like, if you're in Ottoneu and you're just in points and all you need is points and you don't care about strikeouts, he'll be okay. Next, we're going to have Edward Cabrera at 118. Jordan Hicks after that. Ronel Blanco next. Sean Burke, another interesting name. We're going to stop here at Sean Burke. I have him at 121. Sean Burke was really, really good when he came up. And this is a guy who had Tommy John, recovered, didn't play a lot, had another injury and didn't play a lot the previous year. But the stuff looks good. His biggest concern to me is his control, and you can see a 91 control. But a 107 F stuff and a 113 FERA. That will play. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of like Garrett Crochet going into last year. This is a dude, I don't think he has that kind of stuff, so I don't think he's going to be like a number one starter. But he has the stuff to develop, possibly, if he can rein in this control, into being a number 2, number 3 starter in real life. So, and that means on your fantasy team, maybe he's like your number 6 guy or something like that. He's not terrible. Sean Burke is a nice buy, and you can see with the 132 future fScore, there's a lot of room for growth with him. My fScores are projecting that he has a very large range of outcomes. First off, 92 to 132. So that means like his control could just go down the pooper and he sucks, or he figures it out and becomes like a top 3, like a third tier type guy. So Sean Burke, very interesting name. I think he's worth the gamble. A couple other interesting names here. Landon Roop, if he starts, like, I like him. I comped him back a long time ago before he ever debuted, like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago when he's a prospect. I compared him to Corbin Burns. Primary cutter guy, nice breaking, like really nice breaking stuff. That's why I comped him to Burns. I like Roop a lot. I think that he has a lot of potential as a starter, and we'll have to see how this plays out. Are they going to give him that opportunity to start? This might be a thing where if Jordan Hicks looks like crap in their rotation, they swap Roop and Jordan Hicks from pen to starter. And sorry, he's a sinker guy, not a cutter guy. Whereas Burns is the cutter guy, but he uses his sinker as his primary fastball. Basically, he throws his sinker 41% of the time, and the four seamer only 2% of the time. And his primary pitch is the curveball, which he throws 44% of the time. The sinker is really good, by the way. The sinker is like one of the highest. It ranks pretty well on a percentile basis as far as sinkers go. Curve is really good. I just think he's pretty nasty, and he could develop into a pretty good starter if he gets that opportunity. And I'm like Corbin Burns light, by the way. I'm not saying he's going to turn into Corbin Burns. Anytime I'm giving projections, I'm giving them because this pitcher reminds me of the way that another pitcher looks, or another pitcher's arsenal, or another pitcher's route to the league. I'm not saying that this guy will develop into be this guy. It's just like that's the guy that I think of as like a reminder that this guy's like the shadow. He's the light shadow of that person. Sawyer Gibson-Long is next on the list. You might have forgotten him. He was awesome, and a lot of people were really high on him going into last year, but then he got hurt. He's back now, so I think we should be in the same spot. I think there's a really good buying opportunity on Sawyer Gibson-Long. You could probably get him in like the last round in most of your leagues if you want to just take a flyer on a guy who we don't know if he's going to start. We don't know if he's going to be a reliever when he comes back, but he was really good when he was playing. So let's see what happens. He's a nice little last round dart thrower, I think. Garrett Whitlock returning to the pen, but I have him here just in case he starts again. He's going to be much better in the pen than as a starter if he plays up. That's just what things show. Michael McGreevy is number 125. Michael McGreevy is basically like Andre Palante, except he has better control, and he doesn't have as many ground balls. So he's kind of like, talk about bad stuff. Again, 87 F stuff. Maybe he's more like Kyle Hendricks, I think, than Palante. I think Palante is just like Dakota Hudson. He's kind of all over the place, tons of ground balls. Whereas, or maybe like, I don't know, you're not going to know what to expect from Palante. He could just be like a Waldron type where it's like, if you act like Palante is a knuckleballer, then I think that's appropriate for like the attitude you should have with him. Even though he's not a knuckleballer, just act like you just don't know what you're going to get start from him. Michael McGreevy actually has really good control though. So I think he's more like the Kyle Hendricks type where his stuff just kind of sucks, but he's got really good control and he's going to pinpoint a lot of stuff. And like all his strikeouts are going to be like basically like not swinging strikes. They're just going to be called strikes because like he's got a big repertoire and then it won't be a pitch that the hitter is expecting. And it'll be right in the like corner of the zone. But that's how McGreevy's going to play. He was pretty good last year when he came up. AAA was a little rough for him. He had some nice outings, but it was a little back and forth as far as like up and down. But I think Palante and McGreevy are a couple of the more interesting names in the Cardinals rotation, and I hope they both get a shot to start at the beginning of the year. And especially we need Quinn Matthews starting. Lucas Giolito, he's supposed to be healthy this year, but I need to see what he does in spring before I bump him up higher. Like I've got his F score from 86 to 108. That's his range. 86 is assuming like he's going to be hurt and not healthy and be bad Giolito. 108 is assuming he's going to be more like medium Giolito because he is recovering from injury. I don't think we're going to get upper tier Giolito. If we get like medium Giolito, we should be pretty happy with that. Jake Irvin is next, then Aaron Savali. Joey Cantillo, interesting prospect here. I think he's kind of like the number 6 man for the Guardians. His big problem is control. He's got decent stuff. He's pretty good at preventing runs. His control is pretty bad. But the Guardians are really good about developing control in pitchers. Actually, he's kind of like a reverse Guardian. Usually the Guardians take guys that have good control and then develop their pitches and add velocity. He's kind of like an anti-Guardian in a way. And it'll be interesting to see how he develops. Can they develop the anti-Guardians? Andrew Haney, free agent. Jacob Junis, Grant Holmes, Alec Marsh, and Chase McDermott round out the tier. McDermott, I think, is like the number 6 starter. I like McDermott a lot more if he's in the pen. But the Orioles are signing a bunch of relievers. They just signed Andrew Kittredge. Apparently, they tried to sign Jeff Hoffman. Maybe they're going to bring in another guy even because Felix Bautista is returning from injury. So I think this year that McDermott probably stays as like the swingman type role. But long term, if he goes in the pen, he's got really good stuff. Again, terrible control, 84. Like he's like a better version of Connor Phillips, basically. So if you know what that means, then you know what I'm talking about. Next tier here is huge. You can see this tier goes from 135 all the way to 175. So we're just going to go through some of the names. You see Chase Burns here. Very interesting name. I think he debuts this year. The question is going to be when. Maybe because if the Reds are in contention, he's more likely to debut sooner. This might be like a James Wood thing where like he's just so good that they have to bring him up, or like a Paul Skeens where he just plays like one start per level in the minors and works his way up. He's got really good stuff. Not as good as Paul Skeens. The control isn't as good as Paul Skeens. The run prevention ability isn't as good as Paul Skeens, but the stuff is very, very good. You see 113 of stuff. He gets comped to Hunter Green, and I actually think it's a pretty good comp. Same team, too. Jack Leiter is next. Jack Leiter performed really well in the minors last year, really crappy in the majors. Let's see if he can make the transition or if he's just quadruple A. He's 25 now, so it's about time for him to try to make the jump. I think he has the stuff as a starter. He has the arsenal to probably do it. But if he doesn't, worst case scenario, he's a long reliever. Chris Paddock is next at 137. Kiter Montero, Mitchell Parker, Ryan Weathers. Interesting name, Ryan Weathers. The Marlins are really going to depend on him now that Braxton Garrett is hurt. Tobias Myers is after that. Kyle Harrison, Chase Silseth, Frankie Montes, Luis L. Ortiz, Cody Bradford. Luis L. Ortiz, by the way, traded to the Guardians. I'm interested to see what they can do with him. He had, like, a couple years ago, I was really interested in this dude, and you can see the fScores. He's not bad. I think if the Guardians can work some Guardians magic on him, he might end up being a pretty nice buy. So it's just a name to watch, I think, unless you're in a deeper league. Cody Bradford, Luis Severino. No, I'm not buying on Luis Severino's year. He's going to be in a minor league stadium. I'm not really sure what to expect with that. Dude got paid, though, so nice for him. Slade Ciccone, Simeon Woods Richardson, Kyle Gibson. I'm expecting Gibson to end up back with the Cardinals. It kind of seems like the Cardinals are going to be trading some starters. If I were them, I would be trading Fetty because of the rates that starting pitchers are going, and he's $7 million. You could probably get a decent amount for Fetty. If I'm the Cardinals, I'm trading Eric Fetty. I'm trading Steven Matz for a bag of chips, and I'm cutting Miles Michaelis because he sucks. But, they're not going to do that because they're cheap and they're going to want to get some innings out of Michaelis. They'll just let him be a Bartolo Colon and have a 6 ERA and earn his last year of his contract, I guess, as the 5-starter. Even though he's probably their 2-starter because they suck. Reed Detmers is next. Everybody has seen the plot charts with Reed Detmers. Sierra was good. ERA sucked. The problem with Detmers is he gives up a ton of homers, which is why his FERA is so low. He has to stop giving up homers if he's going to be good. This guy is like cancer. This guy's worse than cancer if you're in an odd new league, in an odd new points league. So stay away from Reed Detmers if you're in that type of league. If you're not in a league where runs matter, maybe he's worth a gamble. Next is Cade Cavalli, returning from the injury. I like Cavalli a lot. Let's see if he can get some control up. He should get run with the Nationals this year. This is going to be an underrated name who could really pop. Cade Cavalli. So just keep him on the radar. He's back. Eric Fetty. I am not buying Eric Fetty's last year. Please, Cardinals, trade him while you can. Zach Littell is after that. Cade Povich next. Cade Povich or Chase McDermott. You can see I have Chase McDermott ranked ahead of Cade Povich. The stuff is better. The run prevention is better. The control is much worse. I just think Cade Povich is a number 5 starter. I don't think there's that much there. He was really good in AAA last year. I don't think that matters. I don't think that's who he is. That's not what his track record has said. I was not really ever big on him. I was kind of down on him compared to the industry, and I still remain that way. Yariel Rodriguez, swingman. Richard Fitz. I like Richard Fitz. Dick Fitz. He's probably the 6th man for the Red Sox. Maybe even the 7th man because they keep signing guys and bringing more guys in. But he was good last year. Good control pitcher. Good FERA. He's like Michael McGreevy, but better. I just think that McGreevy has the better opportunity for innings this year, which is why he's ranked higher. But like Richard Fitz has better stuff than Michael McGreevy, but they're very similar type pitchers. Charlie Morton. He should probably be ranked higher just because he's going to pitch a lot, to be quite honest with you. So let's move him up live. The reason he's ranked this far is because the fScore thinks that there's like major regression coming for him as a 41-year-old, just like we saw Justin Verlander have major regression last year as a 41-year-old. But he is going to pitch a lot. I'm not going to have him above like a Kyle Harrison because I think Kyle Harrison is going to be on the way up and Charlie Morton's going to be on the way down. You know what? I'm just going to leave him. I think that he's – we don't even know what the Orioles ballpark is going to be like this year either. Like, they're going to move some walls in. Like, he could just get shelled. We don't really know. I don't know. He's like the last – if I'm picking a pitcher to be like my last man in a 12-team league, maybe, that's about where I'm picking him. Like, it depends on your league type. I might pick him over some of these rookies, depending on your league type. Just, I don't know. Be wary of Charlie Morton this year. Age 41. Next is Casey Mize, number 5 starter. Better for deeper leagues or maybe odd new. Again, he's more of like a run prevention type guy. The stuff is not really there. He's not going to strike people out. He could become Kevin Gossman someday, but I think he's too late. He's going to be 28 already. It's crazy. Landon Knack, number 6, number 7 starter for the Dodgers. I guess he's number 7 or number 8, actually. I don't think he's projected to start in the rotation, and they're running 6-man. JP Sears, Ryan Feltner, Jose Quintana, Tyler Anderson, Herman Marquez, Aaron Ashby. Interesting name for the pen, I think, Aaron Ashby. Drew Thorpe, Quinn Priester, Marcus Stroman, Dean Kramer, Brandon Sproat. Very interesting name here. I don't think he's up until like July. Maybe he's up earlier if someone gets hurt. But I like Sproat. Keep an eye on him. Mets pitchers have struggled at AAA, like historically. So also keep that in mind. Brady Singer, Joe Boyle, probably in the pen for the Rays, which is going to be actually pretty interesting. Tink Hence. I friggin' love Tink Hence. The Cardinals need to get rid of these old, crappy pitchers. Just get rid of them. Let Tink Hence and Quinn Matthews play. Tink Hence has phenomenal stuff. He's great at preventing runs. Like, I comped him to Dylan Cease. I think he could be the next Dylan Cease if he stays healthy. His biggest problem is health. He's like an unhealthy Dylan Cease. But Dylan Cease was this way too, and he's a prospect. People forget. Dylan Cease's control was not the best, and Dylan Cease had injury problems at the beginning of his career. People forget this. Tink Hence is only going to be 22 this year. I think Tink Hence could have a very similar career track to Dylan Cease. Similar stuff. Similar build. Similar fastball. Tink Hence, Dylan Cease. That's the comp. I just think the Cardinals are a dumb organization until Heim really gets in charge. Like, Mozeliak thinks he can compete this year, and they're not selling people when they should just be selling everything they can to get some prospects or to clear room for prospects to play. Like, if I'm the Cardinals, Tink Hence is probably up in May or June, but I'm not the Cardinals, so he's probably up in August or September because they're idiots. So, whatever. DL Hall, probably in the pen to start the year, projected to be in the pen, but could be a swing man. Next tier. That is the tier. Now we have 2 more tiers. I know, right? Tons of pitchers. I told you. We're just going to go through names. I'm not going to talk about everybody. This next tier here is 1-76 through 216. So these are super deep names. You're only picking these guys in like DCs or in like the deepest of leagues. Just an FYI. Ty Madden, Noah Schultz, Osvaldo Bido. I love Noah Schultz, but I just don't think he's up until the very end of the season. The White Sox have no reason to promote him. They're not going to compete this year. If I'm the White Sox, I'm not starting that clock. Maybe you give him a cup of coffee at the very end of the year, which is why I have him even in this ranking. I don't think you see anything until September. If they promote him sooner than that, I think it's dumb, like from a business perspective. But, whatever. Osvaldo Bieldo, Jonathan Cannon, Randy Vasquez, JT Ginn, too early for Ginn, Mitch Spence, Andrew Abbott, Michael Grove, Louis Varland, who I think is going to be interesting in a reliever role if he is a reliever. Max Meyer, he should be a reliever too, but the Marlins need him to start because their rotation is dead. So he's going to start, but I think his best. I was really big on him being a starter, but I think the TJ kind of messed him up. I think he could be an elite reliever. I think that'd be the move, but I don't think the Marlins are going to do it because they kind of need every man on deck, and they're not going to spend money. Kenta Maeda, Lance Lynn, unsigned. Rangers, his ranking will depend on where he signs. He could get some significant innings as a number 5 starter for a decent team and play okay. So I might move him up when he signs. Rangers, Suarez, Tyler McGill, who I think is going to be in the reliever this year, or a swingman. I should probably mark him orange then. Griffin Canning, Alex Cobb, Justin Verlander, who I think is going to get. He went to the best place he possibly could for the way that he pitched last year. San Francisco is the best place he could have gone. The stuff is diminished. The dude is going to be 42. He had a very bad year, a very bad decline at 41. It's only going to get worse. But he did go to the right park for him. So maybe he's better than we think, and he gets a bunch of innings and is just kind of okay with a bunch of innings, like a landslide. I wouldn't expect more than that from Verlander at this point, to be honest with you, because the stuff was just not there last year. He has lost the stuff. It's all just about his art at this point. He's basically Adam Wainwright at this point. Spencer Turnbull, free agent. Carson Wiesenhunt, Hayden Wesniewski, swingman. Miles Michaelis, Thomas Harrington, interesting rookie name who could come up with the Pirates. It'll be interesting to see who comes up next with the Pirates. Is it going to be Bubba Chandler? Is it going to be Thomas Harrington? It'll probably be one of those two names. Barco will be after that. Braxton Ashcraft could, I guess, make the surprise appearance, but that's like the Guardians promoting Logan Allen ahead of Tanner Bybee and Gavin Williams. So it could happen, but like that's my comp for that scenario. Emmett Sheehan, when is he coming back? He had internal brace surgery. He might be back halfway through the year. I actually really love Emmett Sheehan. I think he's phenomenal. It's just like, when is he going to be back? Is it going to be a Walker Buehler thing where he's supposed to come back and they keep saying he's going to be back in July? Now he's going to be back in August. Now he's going to be back in September, and then we don't see him. Maybe. So that's why I'm skeptical. And also the Dodgers have a million different pitchers. And they might get Roki Sasaki too on top of it. Chase Petty. Will Warren should be in the pen for the Yankees. Would be better for him in the pen. Joey Estes, Matt Waldron, Trevor Rogers. Sixth man rotation. Colin Ray, who actually just signed. I have to update that. He signed for $5 million. I don't really know what he's going to do. Swingman, probably. Would be my guess for Colin Ray. Austin Gomber, Albert Suarez, Antonio Senzatella, John Gray, Gilbert Diaz. Yes, John Gray was terrible last year. Eduardo Rodriguez, also terrible last year. Ian Seymour, Graham Ashcraft, Adam Mazer, Marlins. He's going to get a lot of run this year. He should probably have more time at AAA to develop, but Braxton Ashcraft got hurt and they traded Luzardo, so now he's probably just going to start the year in the rotation. So if you need innings, he'll probably be a number 5 starter because he didn't properly develop in the minors, and the Padres suck at developing. They're good at targeting guys and then bad at developing them. And he's a control guy, primarily. Ben Lively, Kyle Wright. Last tier. This is the final tier. Javier Assad, Matt Manning, Christian Javier, Kyle Freeland, Steven Matz, Hagen Smith. Interesting name. Again, the White Sox probably won't promote him until the very end of the season. I think it'd be dumb if they did, to be quite honest. Casey Hunt. If the Brewers run into injuries, we could see Casey Hunt around like the halfway point of the season. I actually really, really like Casey Hunt. Super underrated prospect here. Lance McCullers, is he ever going to play again? Is he dead? Is he alive? Is he going to be a reliever? We don't really know. 4 pitcher durability. You got to love that. He's got good stuff when he plays, but will he ever play again? Alejandro Rosario. Look at his fScores. This guy is phenomenal. I think Kumar Rocker gets ahead of him. Jack Leiter gets ahead of him. I don't think we see Rosario this year, and except maybe a cup of coffee at the end of the season. Maybe they're in the playoff hunt and they want to bring him up and he's a reliever. That is how we might see him. But Alejandro Rosario is the man. AJ Smith-Shawver, Samuel Aldigeri, Robbie Snelling, Patrick Sandoval. Snelling is actually an interesting name. This dude might get more run than you expect this year because the Marlins have no pitchers and because they need bodies, and he's only going to be 21. I hope they don't ruin him. I hope they don't Angels him. I hope they just throw out like relievers and do bullpen games instead of ruining Snelling, because he was performing better at the end of the year for the Marlins. So please develop him. Please don't ruin him. Patrick Sandoval returning from TJ. He'll be back in like July or August. Emiliano Teodo should be a reliever. See the bad control? Like he would be a boss reliever in the back of the bullpen. Please put him in the bullpen. Don't start him. Another reason why Rosario is kind of blocked a little bit because Teodo is still starting. Bailey Falter, Roansy Contreras, Tony Gonsolin, Mason Black, Jordan Wicks, George Klassen, who would be also a baller reliever because the command sucks, but he's got amazing stuff. I saw him live. Really, really good stuff. Fastball is sick. I really think that he could develop into a top-tier closer. They have Ben Joyce. He might take time as a starter. He needs to develop the command. He was all over the place when I saw him, but sick stuff. Hunter Barco, Nick Nastrini, a bunch of prospects right now. Dane Dunning, Parker Messick, interesting name. He could get run. He's like the next guy after Joey Cantillo, though. I think Cantillo runs first. Messick is more of your Guardians' typical pitcher, where he's got a lot of control and you're trying to uptick the stuff. Kind of Thomas Harrington. Like Parker Messick and Thomas Harrington kind of remind me of each other a lot, both with good pitching orgs too, but both need to develop stuff if they want to be, higher tier fantasy guys. Cooper Jerpy, I think he should be in the Cardinals pen. Cardinals should just trade Helsley and make Jerpy the closer, like right out of the gate. That'd be pretty sick. Yeah, go trade Ryan Helsley, get some prospects back, and then put Cooper Jerpy in the pen as the closer because the Cardinals bullpen really sucks. Bryce Elder, Cade Horton. You can see I'm an honest Cardinals fan. I know what I'm looking at. Like, I'm not going to fake myself out and say, oh, they're going to compete this year. I'm not an idiot. They suck. Hurston Waldrep, Connor Phillips, Mason Adams, Ian Anderson, Drew Hackenberg, Brandon Birdsell, Gunnar Hogland, tons of prospects. Logan Anderson, Allen, not a prospect, but he sucks. Sean Sullivan. He doesn't throw hard. He has a wacky delivery. Because of the wacky delivery, people think he's going to be a reliever. I think he's going to be a starter, and I think he's going to be good. My comp that I threw on him in my prospect rankings is Tanner Houck. Tanner Houck has been good as a starter. He can make it work. I know it's Colorado, but he's really freaking good at not giving up runs. That's just in the metrics. If you try to metric Sean Sullivan, like I've seen like player cards and stuff for him, like he's not going to read well because he doesn't have high velocity. His game is all deception. This is a Joe Ryan situation where you're not going to get accurate reads on like Stuff Plus and stuff like that. Like you just got to let him pitch. Like just let him go. He's a deception guy. You're not going to get it. The metrics aren't going to make sense for him, but he's going to be good. Chase Hampton, Blade Tidwell, Isaac Coffey, another weird delivery. Isaac Coffey, very weird delivery. And Cooper Jerby, by the way. Emerson Hancock, Cal Quantrill, took TK Roby, took Roby. I think he gets some run at the end of the year when the Cardinals trade everybody. If they trade everybody, hopefully, please trade everybody. Trade all those people. They all suck. Carson Palmquist, another weird delivery. Adrian Hauser, Paul Blackburn, Jonah Tong. You see terrible control. Could be a reliever in the majors this year if the Mets really wanted to bump him. This is a George Klassen situation. Really good stuff. Had the chance to see him last year. Needs to develop control, please. Brad Lord, Jackson Bowmeister, and Owen Wild. Really awesome Rays guys. The Rays are probably not going to promote them until the end of the year if they get promoted. I have them at the very bottom because you see they have good fScores, both of these guys. I love them both. But I think that the Rays are going to do the Rays things, and they might not even see the light of day this year. Christian Mena, Mick Abel, and Taijuan Walker, your worst pitcher in baseball for 2025. All right, let's get to the relievers. I know we're already at 37 minutes of just Tim talking, but we are doing a lot today because I am going to be out of the country, and I want to get this stuff out to you fine peoples before I'm gone for a week. All right, now we need to screen share the relief pitchers. Bear with me for a second as we do that. Here we go. Relievers, boom. We're there. All right, this whole thing is color-coded. I have here also the roll so you can see it. But basically, when you're looking at the colors and you see all these pretty colors, you're like, Tim likes rainbows. Or this is basically my version of NFBC, right? Blue means that they're pretty much a lock to be the closer. Green means that they're projected to be the closer currently, but I don't necessarily buy the fact that they're going to be the closer for a full season. Yellow means that we have kind of a closer timeshare situation where there's multiple guys in that pen that will probably get saves and could get saves, and it could be situation dependent. It could also be who's hot, like who has got the hot hand dependent. So that's what this lighter yellow is. This bright yellow here, highlighter yellow, means that they're a free agent still. Now orange. Orange means they're setup number one. Red means that they're like a secondary setup guy, that they're not the primary setup guy. And then purple means that they're they're a SPARP, or they could be a SPARP, or they could be some starter reliever role, long reliever role, maybe good for points leagues, those purple guys. That's kind of what's going on with the colors. So you can follow along with the colors as you're watching this on the YouTube, and which I recommend. If you're just listening on the podcast, that's cool. That's usually what I do. I'll usually work out and listen to podcasts, so I don't blame you. But if you want the full benefits of my podcast in the fScores, I highly recommend either listening to this and then reading the articles on Fantasy Pros later so that you can understand what I'm putting down, or watch on the YouTube so you can see live as I'm actually going through the spreadsheets. You can see me clicking through my live spreadsheets. And this is not even what's on Fantasy Pros, because Fantasy Pros cannot even take my spreadsheets. They have to they basically have to turn it into a table from a spreadsheet. I think the spreadsheet format is better than the tables. I'm going to tell you right now. So I recommend watching these videos so you can follow along with the spreadsheets. It's not just because I want you to look at my face and my Perkins roofing closing. It's because I want you to understand the fScores better when I'm going through this. And I want you to see, because I'm not going into depth on This guy has this stuff. This guy has this control. This guy has this FERA, because that takes forever. I'm going just through the rankings right now. When we get closer to draft time, I will be coming back and doing more detailed breakdown on some of these rankings. It'll probably be during spring. And at that point, hopefully I'll have Raymond or Jake or John or somebody with me analyzing some of these names. So let's go through the relievers. Tier 1, Emmanuel Clase. This dude, you can see 193 FERA. He just does not give up runs. He's like the best run prevention reliever that I've ever seen in my life. Besides Mariano. So, yeah. Mason Miller is number 2. And this is funny to keep in mind. You might think Clase is like way older than Mason Miller, but Clase is only 1 year older than Mason Miller if you're in a dynasty league. So keep that in mind. And he hasn't been hurt in forever when he was with the Rangers. Mason Miller is number 2. I moved him ahead of Helsley and Devin Williams, even though they have better fScores, because of the stuff. And because the FERA is down at 124. You might say, why is Mason Miller's FERA down that far? Because right now, my park projections are kind of, we don't really know what to project exactly with major league hitters in the minor league park. We have minor league park projections for that ballpark that give us a general idea. But it's not accurate because those are minor league hitters, not major league hitters. So it's kind of thrown off kilter. Not to mention the A's had like the worst defense in baseball last year. So we'll see if that gets any better this year. Maybe some new players help that out. And then too much talking. Sorry. But good listening to me growling. Sound like Mel Gibson on Joe Rogan's podcast the other day. Ryan Helsley is number 3. If you know, you know. Ryan Helsley is number 3. I've got Helsley ahead of Devin Williams, partially because of ballpark. Devin Williams is going to be pitching in Yankee Stadium. We don't know how that's going to turn out for him, pitching in Yankee Stadium. He's probably going to give up more homers. Ryan Helsley is pitching in a very friendly St. Louis ballpark right now. But there's a very good chance still, or at least a coin flip, that he gets traded. If he gets traded to a worse ballpark, that might flip-flop Devin Williams and Ryan Helsley in my rankings. Edwin Diaz had a pretty rough year last year, but I have to keep him in this tier because he has been one of the best closers in baseball for a very long time. And I'm not going to diminish what he has done in past years because of one kind of tough season after an injury. Let's let him settle back in and see what happens. Tier number 2. You see, this tier is starting with a free agent. Very odd, right? We don't know where Tanner Scott's going to pitch or if he's going to be the closer. My thoughts are that he will probably be signed by a team that will make him the closer. Cubs would be a good fit for him. Rangers would be a good fit for him, though I think the Rangers are probably going to bring Yates back. There are a couple other teams out there that are still looking at closers, where I think Tanner Scott would be a nice fit. If he is signed as a bullpen guy, if he goes back to the Padres, for example, or whatever, he is probably going to be moving down a tier. He will not be in this tier. But he was really, really good last year. And if he's a closer, he deserves to be the top of this tier, in my opinion. This tier is a little volatile. A lot of high stuff guys. Volatile type guys, but I like most of the people in this tier. I'd be perfectly fine drafting any of these guys to be my closer 1. Joe Duran is number 7 closer here. Always really good when healthy. Can he stay healthy? That's his biggest concern. Raisel Iglesias is after that. Then Josh Hader. Hader had a rough year last year. Gave up a bunch of homers moving to Houston. We'll see if that's something that's going to be consistent. Is he going to still give up that many homers, or can he kind of get that under control his second year over there? He was a little bit better in the second half. Next is Felix Bautista. Felix Bautista, in his 2 seasons, was money. Remember, in Dynasty Leagues, he is 30 years old. He is not a young man. He's returning from injury, so I'm a little skeptical that he's just going to bounce right back and be the same guy. We just saw what happened with Edwin Diaz. But he's 95% of what he was, or 90% of what he was. He's still going to be very good. After that, we have Ryan Walker with the Giants. Ryan Walker was awesome last year. The stuff is not the best of the relievers, but this dude is durable, pitched a lot of innings last year, and he has good control, and he is really good at not giving up runs, and he has a great ballpark to do that in. So Ryan Walker, I like a lot, and you can get him cheap a lot of times because there's got to be people who are still Doval lovers that think Doval is going to get that closer role. But I think they'd be crazy to do that because Doval has terrible command, and Ryan Walker has very good command and is not allowing damage. That's all you want from a closer. Don't give up runs in the last inning. Who cares if Doval can strike more people out? Ryan Walker is better at not giving up runs in the last inning. So Ryan Walker should close. Number 12 is Andres Munoz. He had like fluctuating command issues last year. There were times where he was one of the best relievers in baseball, and there were times where he was terrible, just getting rocked. We hadn't seen that from him the last couple of years. Before that, he was just like on track to be a tier 1 closer, and kind of took a step backwards. He's still only 26, so I'm going to give him a little bit of benefit of the doubt, but the command is a little scary. It's not quite Alexis Diaz, but like it is. It gets to that point every now and then. Lucas Erceg, I love the fact that he is a Royal now because that makes him a closer instead of a setup man. He was really good last year. The Royals park is really good to pitch in. He's really good at not giving up runs, and he has a really nice fastball with good command. I like Lucas Erceg enough to put him in this tier with these other guys and Ryan Walker. I think both of those are going to be very good buys for you. Ryan Walker and Lucas Erceg for this year. Next tier down, I start this tier with a starter, Drew Rasmussen. If you are in a points league, this is your number 1 spark, Drew Rasmussen, for this year. So that's why he's here. Next, okay, so it's kind of a cheat. I'm not going to count him as like a number. So next, number 14 would be Robert Suarez, who's also a closer lock for the Padres. By the way, all those names that I've named so far are closer locks except for Tanner Scott, who I project only as a closer because I'm assuming whoever pays him big bucks is going to want him to close. But, some of these rich teams already have a closer, so maybe he just becomes a setup man for a rich team. Very possible that can happen. But Robert Suarez should be the closer lock for the Padres. He is above average at everything, great at none, jack of all trades. Next, we have Michael Kopech. He's kind of in a closer timeshare because also in this tier, we have Evan Phillips. And there's also Blake Trinan hanging around. So we got Kopech, Phillips, Trinan. And will the Dodgers bring back Kenley Jansen? I think Kenley Jansen, pretty obviously wants to go back to the Dodgers, but will they pay him to come back? I think it's a possibility. I think we see Kenley Jansen and Clayton Kershaw back with the Dodgers. Kenley might take a really team-friendly deal just to come back to the Dodgers. If he does, he's probably the closer instead of Kopech or Evan Phillips. Dude is really good at getting saves, even if Kopech has better stuff, even if Phillips has better command. I think Kenley Jansen would be the closer in that scenario, so just keep that in mind as there are still free agents out there. Griffin Jax is my number 1 setup guy. He's next on the list. I have him over some of these closers because he's going to really help with ratios. And if you're in a holds league, then you're going to need holds. So I would actually draft him as a holds league guy over some of these closers. In saves only, probably not. Almost definitely not. But if you're in a saves plus holds or a holds league, I would be taking Griffin Jax ahead of Fairbanks and Bednar. And we'll talk about why in a second. Aroldis Chapman, same kind of deal. I think that with Liam Hendriks recovering from injury, unless the Red Sox get another closer, which there are rumors right now that Ryan Helsley maybe goes to the Red Sox in an Arenado trade for Casas or something like that. It's just rumors, but something like that did happen, then obviously it's going to change things. But right now it looks like Aroldis Chapman and Liam Hendriks might have a closer timeshare where it's situation dependent, especially since Hendriks is coming back from the cancer and the injuries and all these things. So yeah, nice little situation. Might get 20 saves a pop. Next, we have Trevor Amigo with the Brewers, who was actually really good last year. But the Brewers have a lot of young guys with a lot of really sick stuff. So I think there's a chance if one of those guys takes a step forward that Megill becomes the setup guy again. Because if you have a guy who can strike a bunch of people out, I know what I just said about Ryan Walker, but if you have a guy who can strike a bunch of people out and then also not walk people, then that's going to be really good. If Jacob Misiorowski can figure it out as a reliever, then it's probably closer. Craig Yoho was amazing last year. maybe a closer if he comes up. Abner Uribe probably doesn't have the control to take the role, even though there are rumors out there that he's going to get a chance to do it. I'm not really buying that. I think Uribe is kind of like the Camilo Duvall of that pen. Next, we have Pete Fairbanks. Always good when healthy, always hurt, right? After that is David Bednar. Unusual season for him. He's very steady year over year over year. And then if you look under the hood in 2023, he was actually not as good as the numbers. And I kind of thought that that would balance back out because he's been so steady. But then 2024, he got a lot worse. So I'm not really sure what to make of this at this point. Will he bounce back to steady David Bednar, or is he like really getting worse? He's only 30. It's kind of weird, but just keep that in mind. Jeff Hoffman signed with the Jays the other day. Word on the street is that Jeff Hoffman is going to get a shot to close. So I listed Jeff Hoffman and Chad Green as timeshare closers in this tier. Ben Joyce is next. He's the projected closer for the Angels. I wouldn't be surprised if the Angels try to sign one of these closers. Maybe they try to sign Kenley Jansen if the Dodgers don't. So just keep that in mind if you're buying Ben Joyce. But right now, he looks like he's going to be the closer. Apparently, the Diamondbacks are also after a closer, so keep that in mind too. But Justin Martinez is the projected closer right now. Sick stuff, terrible control. Jason Foley is next. Opposite of that. Worst stuff of any potential closer in baseball. Tiger should also try to be in on some of these closer guys. Because Foley is good at preventing runs. He's like a way worse version of Ryan Walker or Trevor Megill, in my opinion. Just worst stuff of any closer in baseball. And right now, I don't know. It kind of looks like he's going to close. I don't think that the Tigers are going to sign one of these expensive closers. Maybe they do. There are also Helsley rumors around the Tigers, but like, I don't know if they're going to trade the prospects that they should be trading for Ryan Helsley. Next is Evan Phillips. Again, talked about him. Possible timeshare with Kopech. Hot hand scenario, maybe, depending on if the Dodgers bring in Kenley Jansen. Alexis Diaz, closer lock for the Reds. The Reds' pen pretty much sucks, and they traded Fernando Cruz. So I think like Diaz is pretty much locked in, even though his command is pretty terrible. So don't depend on whip if Alexis Diaz is one of your guys. Chad Green already talked about, closer timeshare. Liam Hendricks already talked about, closer timeshare. Kenley Jansen already talked about, free agent. Jordan Romano. This is my last closer lock. Jordan Romano for the Phillies. He was really bad last year, and the Phillies have an awesome bullpen. He should probably be a closer projected rather than a closer lock, so I'm going to actually change him to green right now. I think he's a closer lock to start the season, but I think there's a decent chance that he gets replaced by an Orion Kirkring by the end of the season. The next tier here, we have a bunch of setup guys. We have some projected closers who are not good. And we got some possible smart types. So let's get into it. AJ Puck, top setup guy in this tier. Jason Adam. Both those guys were phenomenal last year. Porter Hodge is projected to be the closer right now for the Cubs. He's all right. I think that the Cubs sign one of those guys. So I'm not really buying it. I think he ends up the setup guy. Robert Garcia set up. Cade Smith set up. Both those guys are fire. Jacob Mizurowski. What's he going to do? Is he going to start? Is he going to be a reliever? If they want to move him to the pen, he might be up really early. If he's going to start, then it might just be. I think this is what the Brewers do. They're going to try him at the start as a starter at the beginning of the year, and if it doesn't work out, then they move him to the pen. It's kind of what they did at the end of last year. Chris Bubich, he's a sparp. He's going to be in the rotation for the Royals, and I actually really like him. So really nice sparp here. Chris Bubich, very underrated name. I'd be buying Chris Bubich in a lot of leagues probably. Prelander Baroa. I think that the White Sox have some other crappy guy projected to start right now on roster resource, but Baroa's the better guy. His command sucks, but I don't know. The White Sox are terrible, and even if they do have a full-time closer, you're probably only getting like 20 saves, so who cares about the White Sox bullpen, to be quite honest. Nick Martinez, sparp. Clay Holmes, sparp. Matt Strahm, great setup. Orion Kirkring, great setup. Maybe he gets a closer role at some point. Blake Trinan, great setup, might get some saves for the Dodgers if they don't bring in Jansen. Kevin Ginkel setup. Number 2, Camilo Doval setup. Edwin Uceta setup. Luke Weaver setup. Ian Cano setup. All good guys for Holtz leagues. Tyler Kinley, projected closer for the Rockies. He's okay. That's it. He's just meh. He's not bad. But if like Seth Halverson takes a step forward, or they want to do like turn Brody Brecht into the next Garrett Crochet, like Brecht could be in the bullpen. Calvin Foucher, Marlins, they suck. They don't try. Max Meyer should be the closer. Kevin Foucher is not good. Stay away from that bullpen situation, just like the White Sox. Derek Law is projected to be the Nationals closer right now. I don't think that happens. I think the Nationals get another guy, and Derek Law is the setup man. That's what I would do. But who knows? Could close. He's kind of like Tyler Kinley. Just like, meh, not good, but whatever. Just okay. Next we have Ben Brown. I don't know what the Cubs are going to do with him. Starter, long relief, 6-man. He was really good last year as a starter. I think he should start. Landon Roop, I think he should start. Talked about him in earlier. We're not going to talk about him again. Ryan Presley, Tyler Holton, setup guys. Brian Abreu, awesome setup guy. Jeremiah Estrada, awesome setup guy. Those are both like setup number 2s too. So those are really strong bullpens, the Astros and the Padres. Next tier here is number 60 through 77 relievers. Jose Alvarado, Yimi Garcia, Aaron Ashby, interesting name to watch. Dustin May, interesting name to watch. Jordan Hicks might be a reliever getting by the end of the season. Carlos Estevez, Craig Yoho, talked about him. This is the one reliever prospect I have, unless you're counting Mizurowski or some of these starters as prospects. Dude was boss last year. Let's see. Is he going to break camp? I don't know. Garrett Whitlock, Robert Stevenson, probably won't be back until like June or July. Cole Sands, Hunter Gaddis, Colin Snyder, Adrian Morihone, Gregory Santos, Anthony Bender, Eric Swanson, Hunter Harvey, and Gregory Soto. Did I talk about Brash? Oh, maybe we didn't get to Brash yet. Okay, next here. Bo Brieski, Mark Leiter, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Eli Morgan, Jose Leclerc not signed, AJ Minter not signed, Paul Sewald not signed, all projected to be setup dudes. Manuel Rodriguez, already talked about Ortiz and Teodo. Michael Otanez with the Rays. Or with the A's. Sorry, not the Rays, the A's. Interesting name to watch. Bad command, good stuff. Jose Buto, Abner Uribe, again, interesting name to watch. Terrible command, 79. Atrocious. It's like James Krinchek type command. or Joe Boyle type command. The next name on the list. Cianel Perez, Grant Holmes, Matt Brash, James MacArthur, Daniel Nunez, Seth Halverson. Again, Halverson could maybe become the closer for the Rockies at some point. I like him. Alex Lang, even though I hate the situation, but I like him. Alex Lang, Nate Pearson, Sean Hejele, Tyson Miller, Reed Garrett, Colin Holdman, Tyler Ferguson. Last tier here. This is mostly for points leagues because you see a bunch of starter reliever types. A lot of these names we've already gone over in the starting. I'll just name them real quick. We don't really need to get in depth with some of these guys. Jose Quijada, Tyler Megill, Scott Barlow, Fernando Cruz, Louis Varland, Kyle Finnegan, Yariel Rodriguez, Albert Suarez, Osvaldo Bido, Sawyer Gibson-Long, Craig Kimbrell. Whenever he ends up, he's probably going to set up. Julian Merriweather, Will Warren, George Clausen, Ryan Fernandez, Michael Grove. See, exactly. This is why the Cardinals bullpen sucks so much. Their best setup guy is all the way down at like 120. Michael Grove, Javier Assad, DL Hall, Justin Lawrence, Cooper Jerpy, Matt Manning, Dane Dunning, Hayden Wisniewski, Connor Phillips, Chase Selseth, Lance McCullers. If I'm the Astros, bring McCullers back in the pen. Just get him playing. You're paying him. Steven Matz, Bryce Elder, Adrian Hauser, Rowanzi Contreras, Tony Gonsolin. That is it, my peoples. That is it for this podcast. Going solo, look at that. We can do 2 positions in one because I'm not talking. There's no banter, just my voice talking. And it's very scratchy. It's very tired right now. So that's going to be it. Wish me happy flight, please. And please subscribe again to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the podcast. Subscribe or follow me or whatever it's called on the X. Do all these things. Please review me. Please rate me. Again, I'm providing you a ton of content for free. I should be charging for all this stuff. I'm doing this for free. So please, please review me. The least you can do is review me. Review my companies, Perkins Roofing, Perkins Construction. Do me a solid. I'm doing you guys all a solid, and gals. Please do me a solid. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in a week. I don't know what I'm going to be doing. Probably prospect stuff is next. So be on the lookout. Prospect stuff incoming prior to wrapping back around and getting more in depth on some of these positions now that we have provided you the fScores. Peace out, everybody. See you next time.